What can you even do?
I can ruin you.
The wedding reception hall buzzed with uncomfortable whispers as the young bride stood in the center of the room, her hands trembling slightly at her sides. She had been married for exactly 4 hours, and already her new husband was making her regret the decision to say yes 6 months ago. "I asked you a question," he said louder this time, his voice cutting through the murmur of guests. "What can you even do?" The bride, Maya, felt every eye in the room turn toward her. Her mother-in-law sat at the main table with a satisfied smirk, as if she had orchestrated this entire humiliation. Her own parents looked mortified, frozen in their seats, unsure whether to intervene or let their daughter handle this herself. It had started innocently enough. During the reception dinner, someone had asked Maya about her career. She had excitedly explained that she was a research analyst at a technology firm, working on data patterns and market predictions. Her husband, Arjun, had interrupted with a dismissive laugh. "That's just looking at numbers on a computer all day," he had said, waving his hand as if brushing away a fly. "I meant, what can you actually do? You know, real skills." Maya had tried to smile politely, assuming he was joking, perhaps nervous and saying foolish things. But then his mother had chimed in, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "Can you cook traditional meals? Can you manage a household? Can you take care of a family properly?" Each question felt like a small cut, designed to wound without drawing visible blood. Before Maya could respond, Arjun had stood up, emboldened by his mother's support and perhaps the 3 glasses of whiskey he had consumed. "Seriously, what can you even do?" "My mother has been cooking since she was 15. My grandmother managed a house of 12 people. What have you ever done besides stare at a screen?" The room had fallen silent then. Even the catering staff had stopped moving, sensing the tension. Maya's best Friday, and from college, sitting 3 tables away, looked ready to leap to her defense. Her younger brother had actually started to stand, his face red with anger, but their father had pulled him back down with a firm hand. Everyone waited. They waited to see if this bride would crumble, would cry, would apologize for not being enough. They waited to see if this marriage would survive even its first day. Maya took a slow, deliberate breath. She had spent the last 6 months ignoring red flags, dismissing her friends' concerns, convincing herself that Arjun's occasional condescending comments were just cultural differences or communication issues. His mother's cold behavior during the engagement had been explained away as traditional reservations. Every warning sign had been painted over with hope and optimism. But standing there, in her heavy red wedding dress, with jewelry that suddenly felt like chains, something crystallized in her mind. She thought about her grandmother, who had whispered to her that morning while helping her get dressed. "Never forget who you are, child. A wedding doesn't erase you. It should add to you, not subtract." She thought about her first day at university, when her professor had told the class that intelligence without courage was useless. She thought about the promotion she had earned last year, working 18-hour days to prove herself in a male-dominated field. She thought about the research paper she had co-authored that had been cited in international journals, and she thought about what her life would look like if she stayed silent now. Years of these small humiliations, decades of being diminished, a lifetime of being asked, "What can you even do?" Every time she failed to meet someone else's definition of worthy, Maya straightened her spine. She reached up and carefully removed the heavy necklace her mother-in-law had presented to her during the ceremony, the one that had been in their family for generations. She placed it TLY on the table in front of her. "What can I do?" she repeated, her voice steady and clear. Every person in that hall leaned forward slightly, straining to hear. Arjun crossed his arms, a smug expression on his face, expecting either an apology or a list of domestic skills she would promise to learn. Maya looked directly at him, then at his mother, then slowly around the room, at all the faces watching her. She saw pity in some eyes, anticipation in others, and in a few, particularly among the younger women present, something that looked like hope. "I can leave," she said. 3 words. Simple, powerful, final. The room erupted. Arjun's face went from smug to shocked to angry in the span of seconds. His mother gasped and clutched her chest as if Maya had physically struck her. Several aunts began talking at once, their voices rising in a cacophony of scandal and disbelief. But Maya wasn't finished. She raised her hand, and somehow, miraculously, the room quieted again. "You ask. What I can do. I can analyze complex data sets that help companies make million-dollar decisions. I can speak 3 languages fluently. I can solve problems that most people don't even understand. I have a master's degree that I earned while working full-time. I have published research that professionals in my field respect." Her voice grew stronger with each sentence. "I can support myself completely. I can pay my own bills, manage my own finances, and build my own life. I can choose who I spend my time with and who I give my energy to. I can set boundaries. I can demand respect." She turned to face Arjun directly. "But apparently, none of that matters to you, because I haven't spent years perfecting recipes or learning to serve others without question. You don't want a partner. You want a servant. You want someone who will make themselves smaller so you can feel bigger." Arjun's face had turned red. "You're overreacting," he sputtered. "It was just a question. Everyone's asking. What kind of wife you'll be?" "No," Maya said firmly. "You are trying to humiliate me. In front of everyone we know, on what's supposed to be one of the most important days of our lives. If this is how you treat me when we've been married for 4 hours, I don't want to know what year 4 looks like, or year 14. Her father had stood now, moving toward her with tears in his eyes, not tears of shame, but tears of what looked like pride. He had always encouraged her education, her career, her independence. He reached her side and placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "The cars are still outside," he said quietly. "If you want to go, we go." Maya's mother had joined them, and then her brother, forming a small protective circle around her. She looked at each of them. These people who had loved her before any wedding, who had supported her dreams even when society questioned them. Then she looked back at Arjun, who seemed to finally understand that this was actually happening. He took a step toward her, his hand outstretched. "Wait, let's talk about this privately. You're being dramatic. Everyone will talk." "Let them talk," Maya said. She began removing her bangles, one by one, placing them on the table with small clinking sounds that seemed impossibly loud in the tense silence. "Let them say that I was a bad wife, that I didn't even try, that I was too proud, too educated, too modern. Let them say whatever makes them feel better about accepting less than they deserve." She looked around the room again, her eyes finding the younger girls and women scattered throughout the crowd. A teenage cousin watching with wide eyes. A young bride of 6 months who had her own mother-in-law problems. A college student who had been told her dreams were too ambitious. "I want every woman in this room to hear this," Maya said, her voice carrying to every corner. "You are not required to shrink yourself to fit into someone else's small expectations. You are not obligate to accept disrespect, because it's tradition or family or just how things are. You always have the option to walk away from anything that diminishes you." One of the older aunts stood up, shaking her head. "This is shameful. Marriage requires compromise, requires sacrifice. You young girls today are so selfish." Maya turned to face her. "You're absolutely right that marriage requires compromise. Both people should compromise. Both people should sacrifice at times. Both people should respect and value each other. But that's not what was happening here. I was being tested and found wanting in the first hours of my marriage, for not meeting standards that were never clearly communicated, and that have nothing to do with who I actually am." She began walking toward the exit, her family flanking her. With each step, she felt lighter, despite the heavy wedding dress. Arjun called after her, his voice now pleading rather than taunting. "Maya, please, we can work this out. I'm so... Are we okay?" "I shouldn't have said that. My mother pushed me to test you, to see if you would be obedient. It was stupid. Please don't go." She paused and looked back one last time. "The fact that you thought testing me was acceptable, that obedience was something to demand from a partner, tells me everything I need to know. I hope someday you understand that a wife is not an employee to be managed or a child to be trained. She's supposed to be your equal, your partner, your choice because of who she is, not despite it." As Maya walked out of that wedding hall, still in her bridal dress, she could hear the explosion of conversation behind her. Scandal, drama, gossip that would fuel family gatherings for years to come. But she could also hear something else, the sound of small footsteps running to catch up. She turned to see her teenage cousin, the college student, and even the young bride of 6 months following her out. "That was the bravest thing I've ever seen," the college student whispered. "I've been miserable," the young bride admitted, tears streaming down her face. "Watching you walk away, I realized I could too. I don't have to stay in something that makes me feel worthless." Maya's cousin just hugged her tightly. "I want to be like you when I grow up." In the parking lot, as her father's driver opened the car door, Maya took one last look at the wedding hall. She had walked in there as a hopeful bride. She was leaving as something different. Not broken, not failed, but freed. The next morning, the phone calls started. Relatives demanding she reconsider. Community leaders offering to mediate. Even Arjun's mother called, surprisingly, not to apologize but to negotiate what Maya's conditions would be for returning. Maya's response to all of them was consistent. "I'm not negotiating respect. It should have been a given." Within a week, she had consulted a lawyer about annulment. Within a month, she had moved to a new apartment, determined to build a life on her own terms. Within 6 months, she had been promoted again at work and had started a blog about financial and emotional independence for women. Her story spread, as stories like that do. She received messages from women across the country, some thanking her for the courage to inspire their own departures from toxic situations, others criticizing her for not trying harder, for not being more understanding. But the message that meant the most came from an unexpected source. Her grandmother, the same one who had whispered wisdom to her on her wedding morning, sent her a letter. "I stayed in a marriage where I was asked that question every day in 1,000 different ways. What can you do? Why aren't you better? Why aren't you different? I stayed for 50 years, and I convinced myself it was strength, was duty, was love. Watching you walk away after 4 hours, I finally understood what real strength looks like. It's knowing what you deserve and refusing anything less. You did. I in one day what I couldn't do in a lifetime. I'm so very proud of you." Maya kept that letter in her wallet. On hard days, when doubt crept in, when society's judgment felt heavy, when she wondered if she had overreacted or been too hasty, she would read it and remember. 3 words had changed everything. Not because walking away was easy, but because staying would have been slowly devastating. She had chosen herself, her worth, her future, and in doing so, she had reminded countless other women that they could choose themselves too.